high-end people, and but he's not even on campus. He's not even anywhere around in class. So he may, even if he stayed, he probably wouldn't be eligible.
Right.
You know, Tennessee got manhandled the other night. There was no way they were going to come back from that. I have seen that too many times.
Well, what was the amazing part was they got manhandled in the first half in college fouls on Kentucky. And so when they come out for the second half, you think, okay, well, they're in.
There was one kid, I can't remember his name, but he was about 6'8", he was big.
Yeah.
And there were fouls that should have been called on him that were called up on us. But he's a big boy.
Yeah.
And see, our big guy is beanpole.
Right.
Kyle Williams. He just doesn't have the toughness that you want.
And that's what separates these Duke and Carolinas and Kentucky is when they can get those kids.
Well, you know, they keep saying Grant Williams is 6'7". No. From what I've been told, he's barely 6'5".
Right. Well, and you can see when he's playing against Kentucky how much smaller he was. You know, he looked pretty big against other teams, but not.
But they knew how to defend it.
Yeah. Well, and then they came off that controversial loss against LSU.
Yeah.
And that's all that he needed was to fire.
I was really hoping that Tennessee would make a better showing against Vanderbilt. I went to a training class and came home and I DVR'd it, and I'm like, oh, we're only by 12, really?
Yeah. And that 12 is deceiving because it wasn't until the very end that they pushed it. It was a 4 or 5 point game that they left throughout.
They missed a ton of shots. It's 2 o'clock. So, are you guys going to sit in on this, or are you there just working?
I am sitting. I'm here.
Brett? Brett, are you sitting in on this?
Yeah, I'm not.
Okay. Well,
Thank you.
you sitting in on this? Okay. No, you good? Sure. Okay. Let me go to the restroom real quick. Kim, are you sitting in on this?
I'm calling out the year.
Well, I don't know who's on. I don't know who's here.
What's it on?
Estate planning, wills, and putting real estate inside trusts. All right, like I said, we gave a workshop. Paul's not even here.
Well, this is yeah, but it's just.
I know.
Yeah.
Okay. They're releasing upstairs. gonna stick around for the class?
I am.
Okay.
Is it approximately an hour? I'm gonna have to leave. Yes, I am.
Tell me your name.
Stan.
Hey, Sam. Brian Carter. Good to meet you. Okay, let's go ahead and get this thing rolling. Okay, we'll go ahead and get this thing rolling. And for those of you that are online, thank you for coming and sticking around. If you are on the other end, please see me because I do have a pretty good handout that's going to talk about a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about. It's been a unique journey for me over the last 6 months because, as you know me, I'm pretty much been the home and auto guy around here for the last 7.5 years. I decided to make a change on my financial planning practice. It came totally unexpected, and as I've gotten more into it, I'm learning things that are available to me that I've never had in the 37 years of being in business. If you saw my blog yesterday on Social Security, that's something that I was not able to talk about in the past. Now I can. Wills, trusts, and estates, which is pretty boring stuff, but everybody needs it. So this is something provided by my new back office. I'm pretty excited about it. I've always had an issue with getting clients to attorneys to get their wills done. They know they need to do it. It's just something else you procrastinate on. And I've had a lot of clients going, do you do this? And I'm like, no. Well, now I have a conduit to get you directly in touch with the folks to get everything taken care of. So let's just kind of get into this a little bit. I don't know if I'm on the right side or not. I'll get over here. With regards to wills, 90% of Americans are unprepared, unfamiliar, unsure, or uncomfortable. If you've ever had to deal with an estate of a parent or grandparent, you know sometimes it can get very sticky because not having a will means you don't have any rights from the grave to make any decisions whatsoever. So making your own decisions, it's not hard. You just sit down and say, okay, I'm not here, what happens? Or what you don't want to happen, you should be more concerned with. So, basic will. I, Brian Garden, being of sound mind and body, do the following things and leave certain things to certain people. It's real simple. If you have an IRA or a SEP or life insurance, they have beneficiary designations. They don't go through the will. They go direct to the beneficiary. And obviously the beautiful thing about life insurance is that the benefits go 100% income tax free, non-reportable in any way, shape, or form to the IRS. So a will, we would use it to say, okay, my mother has said about 10 times what furniture in the house is mine and which is my brother's. I don't care, but my mom has a special directive in her will as to what we get, what my niece and nephew get. But let's get into the more meat of things, which I will start with that picture right there. You may have seen me show this before. This is a car wreck I walked from 10 years ago. And this was my car right here. Little girl not paying attention, probably texting, doing whatever. But the bottom line is she took her life, she took my life into her hands, and it could have been awful. I actually walked from this wreck. When the adjuster and the insurance company asked me how I got out of the car, I proceeded to tell him, I'm not sure. When an adjuster who looks at auto accidents every day asks you how you got out of a car that's that demolished, it clearly makes you think. There's two of these on here, Steve. So let's look at what could have gone wrong in this situation. Let's say that I was unconscious and incapacitated. I'm a single man. Who's going to make my decisions on my behalf? Anybody got any ideas?
A parent living.
Yeah, I would have a parent out of town. Can the doctor do anything with me not being around to make my own decisions. No. The new thing that we're seeing, and Paul chime in, is a HIPAA directive where there has to be a signed document where the person has the permission to talk about the other person.
Mm-hmm.
So, and who's going to make financial decisions on my behalf? Heaven forbid, this is a lengthy thing. But that's what I want you to start thinking about is, okay, what if that was me, and what if I had not walked from this wreck? The HIPAA law basically, it's designed for privacy, but it basically talks about the need for having documents in place just in case you cannot make decisions on your own. It allows people to do things on your behalf when you're not able to. I love my brother to death, but I'm not giving my brother any directives whatsoever for me. He's who he is. But so many people don't think about this stuff. They just think, oh, I need a will, we're going on a trip, in case we die, we need to do this. But it's so much more than that. The healthcare power of attorney allows someone to make decisions on your behalf. It's getting down to, do you have a DNR or do not resuscitate? So they have permission or not permission to pull the plug, and we've all seen some of those scenarios. Dave, I didn't realize you were going to be here. Let me give you more of these. Had I been completely unconscious in a coma and had these directives, I would have had somebody on my behalf that I loved and trusted to make decisions on my behalf, because we'd have had the conversation. They would have taken care of me with honor and dignity, and that's a lot of what a will is. It's just preserving your honor and preserving your dignity, and allowing your family to not have all of the pain and suffering in addition to this. And the bottom line, things change. So wills are not set in stone. We can always amend them. I mean, how many of you have kids that you're threatened to write out of the will?
Two of them.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah, it's like, keep it up. My dad was always good at it. Uh-huh.
I don't care.
No, but the funny thing is, as many clients that I've worked with that have passed away, it's amazing how the adult children basically change their tune to how much they love their mom and dad to how much money am I going to get. And it's always been a challenge to watch the dynamic of that shift. What's the HBO show about the kids that want to inherit dad's business and Succession? It's hysterical, but it's right on point. It's right on point because dad gets it. And, we'll see what season 2 looks like in this. The next thing is financial considerations. Who is there to take care of my finances? I've got commissions coming in. I've got bills that have to be paid. I have to make sure my mortgage, my utilities, my insurance, and everything else remains intact. The last thing I want is for my assets to go into foreclosure. Somebody has to have permission to do that, to take care of these things, and saves your family from asking the courts and avoids these expenses. It's all kind of preset. Your estate is either yours or the probate courts. You decide. If you die without a will, then everything short of life insurance and IRAs goes into probate, and then it could be a battle. It could be, especially in situations for, heaven forbid, husband and wife die simultaneously. Well, the chances of that happening are very, very slight. I had an attorney teach a class to us years ago and made the comment, well, the chance of simultaneous death is almost impossible. And I went, excuse me, November 1963, my aunt, uncle, and 3 cousins are flying to come see us from Lawrenceburg, Tennessee to Knoxville. Not sure what happened, but the whole family died in a plane crash. The judge didn't know what to do because there was no plans for that big of a simultaneous scenario. 2 years ago, one of my favorite clients, he was 83. He and his wife were coming home from church. Guy, not paying attention, hit them, killed them both. Luckily, he had everything that it needed to be. I had all the insurance, I had all the investments, the attorney and I worked well together. It made sure everything got done cleanly, but he had plans for that. So that's 2 simultaneous deaths in my life, one personal, the other professional. There's 3 ways we can go. No will, with a will, and then looking at a living trust. And for those of us that are in the real estate business and own real estate, if not handled properly, can go through probate. Paul, please chime in.
I will say, and we mentioned briefly about kind of the expense of, letting a court handle it versus a will. And I also know, especially, people my age kind of think, well, I don't need a will either because I'm not going to die, or because it's a couple $100 that I don't really have to spend at this point. It's probably going to be more than a couple $100 to get everything through probate, hiring an attorney. So it is kind of one of those handoffs where it's going to be a lot less headache to grieving family members to try and figure out how to handle your stuff. It's going to speed the process along. It's really, I mean, it kind of, in many ways, just kind of comes down to good planning and then, taking the time now to go ahead and formulate that plan, spend, a couple $100 for an attorney to draft. I mean, it doesn't have to be extravagant. It can be fairly simple. And just say, this is what I want. My only asset might be my house, but I want my house to go to my children. If my children aren't 18, then I want, my brother-in-law and his wife to take care of them. So, it's easy to put it off, and you're like, well, I don't want to spend that money now, but the money's going to come due at some point anyway, so it's probably going to be a lot easier to take care of on the front end.
I have some clients, I've had them for over 20 years. When I first sat down with them, I said we need to get wills to make provisions for the children. This was like 1998. I think the kids were 2 and 1. They couldn't make up their mind who they wanted to leave the kids to. Guess what? They still haven't, and the kids have graduated college. They could never make a decision who would get the children. And that's a hard call for everybody. Because then you start getting into families. But the thing is, if you think about unbundling your life, you're not here. Who's going to make sure your credit cards are closed out? That your home is handled properly, either left to the family or sold? And who's going to pay the debts? Because there's an entire life full of financial decisions that has to be unbundled and settled. And that is where probate gets into a lot of things. And making sure you've got the right people in place that you want. Okay. With probate, judge will look at the will, he'll figure some things out. Then, as you mentioned, okay, if I do have children, I want them to go to my brother. We've all seen the movies where people are guardians of the children in the will and didn't know it. They seem to make a comedy out of that every time with a happy Hollywood story. It doesn't happen all that time. It's like, okay, 20 years ago when I was married and our next door neighbors decided to make my wife and I the guardians of their children. And we got divorced 2 years ago and they never changed their will. Guess what? Their will says I get the kids. And so and one thing about wills, after death, they are irrevocable. They become ironclad and they become a binding legal document at death. So, looking at things like this, and the estate administrator, that's the person that pays your bills, unbundles your life. Do you want somebody for the court to appoint, or do you want to do it yourself? I talk to clients all the time, and I told a woman one time, I said that I'm going to say 4 words to motivate you to get your wills done on behalf of your children. If you guys die at the same time, your children become wards of the state. Wards of the state. No mother wants that for her children. No father wants that. You want to make sure in the event of your children are going to be taken care of by the people you want with the money available to do that. Tennessee does not have probate fees. California's probate fees are ridiculous because this presentation was sent to me by a gentleman in San Diego, and I had to do some cleaning up. But I called one of the guys that I use for my wills and trusts. As we talked about before, you're a real estate guy. Real estate guys need to be real estate guys. They don't need to be drafting documents. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I mean, we get questions all the time about, hey, can you draft my will? It's going to be simple. And theoretically, I've passed the bar. I can do it, but I prefer not to for your sake, because with changes in tax laws and just as things progress over the years, what I don't want to do is inadvertently mess up your estate, and do something that you didn't desire. And so getting someone who's focused in that area is crucial. So
let's say that I have the will and the advance directives for power of attorney for healthcare and medical decision and HIPAA. But I have other assets that I didn't think about, like my rental properties, like my primary residence. They're going to go through probate. And one of the guys that I use, I called him and I said, just out of curiosity, I know you charge a flat rate for wills and trusts. What do you charge for probate? He said, by the hour. And if I'm sitting in probate court for 4 hours waiting to be heard, I'm billing. So this is his work, his numbers. The ranges are between $3,500 and $7,500 to have an attorney go through probate on your behalf. Somebody's got to pay that bill. This is what an administrator does. It's basically someone that takes care of everything and settles your life. Cataloging all your property. Okay, John, who's going to get my guitars? Literally, who's going to get my baseball card collection? Who's going to get the art that I've accumulated? Who's going to get the things that mean stuff to me while I'm here? Where do those items go? Making sure that you can settle disputes between families. Because if I've got 3 children, I'm going to have 3 squabbling adults claiming that I love one of them more and they should get more of the stuff. Again, it's nothing more than putting things in writing while you're here. Now, how many of you have heard of a living trust? Everybody in the room. Do you know what revocable means?
It can be revoked.
What does irrevocable mean?
Can't be.
Cannot. What a living trust does, it creates a vessel to put assets inside to bypass probate court.
Yeah.
Fair?
Yeah.
Okay. So, where life insurance and IRAs go straight to, basically it gives it an assignment to say, you know what, I want one of my rental properties to go to my nephew and the other to go to my niece. And inside the living trust, I have placed both of those properties and my personal residence. A question you might want to ask your clients when you close on the house is, have you thought about setting up wills and trusts now that you're a homeowner and putting the home inside a trust so it makes life easier in the event of? I never thought of that. Most people think like Paul said, if I die, I'm gone, you get it, they get it, whatever. The advance directives, if that didn't scare the heck out of you, it sure scared the heck out of me to think 10 years ago death would have been a better option than the worst case scenario on that. But with a living trust, it holds your assets. The trustee can take care of things. It bypasses everything. What if you were just, okay, I'm gone, everything, my bills are going to be paid, my assets are going to be separated, everything is going to be good, and my family is still going to enjoy Christmas or Hanukkah. because that's what it comes down to, is just planning ahead.
I will say also, from an agent standpoint, putting a property in a living trust makes it a lot easier when the kids want to sell mom and dad's house, because they've all got houses and they don't, maybe they don't want the ranch over in Donaldson, whatever. It's a lot simpler from Tyler's standpoint if we could sell it out of the trust rather than trying to probate or do affidavits of heirship and clean that up prior to sell. And so you'd be able to, again, dispose of the property ends a lot quicker, and then you're not racking up all those expenses of maintaining the property while you put it through probate and everything else.
And the kids don't have the right to squabble because you've already said they can't.
Yeah.
This is a real short, clean presentation. Most of what I've talked about on these slides is in this handout. The first page, there was a realtor that was here the other day, and we were chatting about life insurance because he was concerned about his children. I said, "Have you talked to your wife about wills?" And he went, "No, not yet." I said, so I basically gave him this and said, take this home and have your wife go down this list. And if there's anything on this list, like what happens to the children, you need to at least have a conversation about getting a will done. Like I mentioned, I am not an attorney. I do not draft documents. But one of the things that has been a big deterrent has been the cost. And so through this new venture that I'm working through, this organization out of San Diego has given me the opportunity to partner with an attorney that does online work. It is like LegalZoom with kindness and simplicity. And what I really liked about it was for the whole kit and caboodle, wills, advanced directives, and living trusts, and the education to put it in the living trust is less than $1,000. Some attorneys charge that just for the basic wills.
Yeah.
So again, I'm not selling, I'm sharing. And if you are interested in learning more, just let me know. If you want to drill down a little deeper, I'll be glad to have a conversation with you and your spouse just from a financial advisory standpoint. Paul can talk about from a legal standpoint to a point for both of us. But hopefully you learned a little bit today, and for those of you out there, thank you. And that's pretty much what I've got to talk about, folks. Thank you. Steve.
So just, I might have missed this, but a living trust, does that replace a will? Is it either or?
It's both. It's in addition to.
Yeah. The living trust is a vehicle where theoretically it's not a separate entity, but it's this legal fiction where you place the assets within the trust of a trustee. I realize I'm kind of using the same word over and over again to define itself. But like, if I were to put my house in trust, I could name myself as trustee. I'm holding those assets for the benefit of a beneficiary. In this case, the initial beneficiary is me and my wife. But we have subsequent beneficiaries like my 2 daughters. So I'm holding these assets, but they're not truly mine as trustee. The trustee is only holding the assets for the benefit of the beneficiary. So again, that's kind of why it passes outside of probate. And often wills will go ahead and set up a living trust or set up subsidiary trusts so that the assets are not being held by the deceased directly. They're held by the trustee on behalf of the deceased. And I realize it gets confusing when 3 of those roles all end up being the same person. It's it seems kind of silly to put on your trustee hat versus your beneficiary hat when you're all doing the same thing.
And then the will names a new trustee if you die?
But right, yeah, the will is going to name probably a successor trustee, successor beneficiaries. So in the event that, like, heaven forbid, one of my children were to predecease me, then who would be the beneficiary that the trustee is holding those assets for?
So if you have one child, that you want everything to go to that child, would the will not suffice?
The will would do it, but in order to actually, like, for instance, for property, pass title to that child, you'd still have to probate the will and have the court enter an order that says we are replacing, vesting on the title from the deceased to the child.
But the will would have to go through probate anyway if the will is naming a new beneficiary.
It would, except if the house is already held in the trust, then the trustee, say if the deceased was the trustee, the trust and or the will are going to appoint a successor trustee. So in this case, maybe the deceased's sibling is now the trustee, who now holds title, because it's actually in the name of the trust. The trustee is the person who manages the trust. So now it's the sibling can dispose of that property and give the assets to the beneficiary. So it's all outside of the scope of performance.
Doesn't it provide also a certain amount of anonymity to purchase a house in the name of a trust?
It
a lot of people investors like to do that just so that like people are searching documents about who you live or blah blah blah. It won't show up because it's in the name of the trust.
Right.
Versus
and we've run into this issue with clients who have some level of notoriety or famous.
Right.
So they would be the beneficiary of the trust, as well as the settlor. So they would put the assets into the trust, but they might name their business manager as the trustee. Right. So that's the person who will sign documents. Only the name of the trustee would appear on public documents, but you don't see that it's actually Garth Brooks that owns this house. Right. It's the Wedgwood Properties Trust or whatever holds it, and it's his trustee, Carla Stafford or something, is the trustee, and no one knows that it's actually Garth Brooks who owns the house. Okay. That's not actually a real one, so don't try to look that up.
I'll write that down.
It's my understanding that wills once probated can become public record.
Yes.
I had a copy of Jackie Onassis' will. I was in a workshop and passed it around, never got it back. But it was an interesting read because she was very precise in what she did and who she gave things to. And she was very benevolent in the way that she separated the wealth that she had. Perfect example of how a trust works with confidentiality. George Harrison, when he died, he was the wealthiest Beatle in 2000, 2001, something like that. His estate was worth over $150 million. It's completely confidential, since it's still, the family is basically taking proceeds per his wills and directives from the trust. 100% confidential, no one knows anything.
Except how much it was worth.
Well, and the thing is, that was a ballpark. I read a biography about him, and of course they don't know exactly, but they, you can go in and Google anybody. It's like, I was curious what Freddie Mercury's estate was worth. I Googled it and got a number, So it's all guesstimated. But hopefully I got your attention. Hopefully you can take this home with your spouse, sit down, mark it up, and at least maybe take the next step. If you want to learn more about the relationship that I have that is an indirect relationship, I would be more than happy to share it. If you have someone that does actually do estate planning and you want to work with that person, please do. But as far as talking to your clients when they're making the financial decision of buying the home or buying investment properties, have you thought about putting your property inside a living trust? All you have to do is ask the question. If they're interested, you know where to find me, you know where to find Paul.
And it does become, I think, a good value add too to clients, being able to point them in that right direction. Because once they buy it, they're going to get inundated with offers for life insurance and everything else. So if you really sort of cut through and be like, no, don't look at any of that stuff. I've got this service for you that will accomplish all of this and more. Again, I think it's another great value add you can add to the client.
Questions? Thanks, folks.
Big round.
Big round.
Village round.